So, I think you have a very particular grape variety, and that's why I actually found you on also on Instagram, and that's why I wanted to talk to you for sure, because Roter Veltliner, and especially in the Wagram region, is very distinctive. So, if you could just maybe introduce where you are located, and also maybe a little bit talk about the terroir and why are you special, maybe also not just in Austria but also in the world.
Okay, yeah. We specialized in this variety, so my father focused on this variety, so Roter Veltliner, around 30 years ago. And right now we have 5 different types of this wine. So we have the classic one, Roter Veltliner Wagram, which is just should show the variety, so it's fermented in stainless steel. And then we have Roter Veltliner Rich Steinberg. That's our first single site of this wine. As the name is saying, Steinberg, it's on gravel, so less with gravel. We also have the single site Roter Veltliner Mortal. It's one of the highest single sites of the wine region Wagram. We are located in the wine region Wagram. And there we have the Tertiary gravel. And then we have Roter Veltliner Steinberg Privat. There the special thing is that it's stored for 1 year in small oak barrels, so already used oak barrels. And the last one is also part of my project. It's a Roter Veltliner, who is called Gondwana, and it's fermented on the skins. So it's stored for around 30 days with the skins in 500-liter acacia barrels. And that's the last one. So we have 5 different types of this wine.
We have a lot to talk about. I'm already said that I cannot taste them right now. But maybe if you could just go a little bit and talk about, like, broader, where is the Wagram region located and why is it special, the climate, maybe also the geology.
It's located in Lower Austria. It's between Feuersbrunn and Großweikersdorf. So it's the first wine region when we look to the eastern side of to the western side of Vienna. Also the town Klosterneuburg is part of it. And the Roter Veltliner fits there very well because of the soils, because of the loess, and also the climate of the Danube. So we have a very mild climate and also a big difference between the temperature. So during the day it's warm and in the night it's cold, and that's good for the temperature, also good for the variety Roter Veltliner.
And why is it good that you have less soil mostly?
Not directly the less soils are the best soils for Roter Veltliner, but on the higher single sites we have some gravel between the loess. And this is perfect for Roter Veltliner because with the variety Roter Veltliner, there you can get problems with rot. So it's important that there is always a light stress for the winds. So there should be some water stress, so we can so we are able to harvest very late. And these are the best conditions. So you can wait a very long time, and the Roter Veltliner has always a high acidity. And these are then you will get very complex wines, and so it's a very, very good location for this variety.
And the autumns are also typically very dry, as in Burgenland?
Yes, not as dry as in Burgenland, but also dry. But it depends on the year. So in years like 2014, there it wasn't that dry, and this can be a big problem. But the last year it was okay. So it was dry during the autumn.
And when you say typically a little harvest, typically end of September or beginning of October, or what are we talking about?
Beginning of October, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, in the last years we always get earlier, but in the last year we harvested for the single sites we harvested at the beginning of October to the mid of October. Yes.
So, and Roter Veltliner is quite famous that it can hold acidity really well, right? But also,
Yes.
in my experience, can have a broader body, so not just a linear wine, but a very full-bodied white wine, I would say, and with a higher alcohol.
Yeah, that's because when you wait, then there is a small concentration in the grapes, so in the berries, and that's like because they are getting smaller after sometimes, and then you just lose the water inside, and then you get a natural concentration, and that's the reason why you get a full body, a lot of extract, and that's also the reason why we are producing Roter Veltliner in wooden barrels.
Okay, so can you maybe tell the differences between these? Like you also do reductive style, probably, right? Only stainless steel, as you said. So, and also bigger barrels, smaller barrels, and also long skin contact. How does the grape variety react to this kind of winemaking methods?
It depends on the style and also really on the grapes, under which conditions the grapes are. So for the wine in stainless steel, we harvest earlier, so it should be the fresh, the more easier to drink wine. And then with the single size, we work with barrels. So for Steinberg, we work with big barrels, and that's because of the oxidation from the barrel, so through the wood.
Can I stop you right there? Sorry, because I already have some questions. So you have with the stainless steel style, it's easier to drink, what you say. Why do you think it is? And because it probably has more esters and more fruity and maybe lower alcohol?
Yes, not easy to drink in this way, so it has lower alcohol, and it's this is our wine to get to know about the variety. So it's the first one. We let them taste it, the first one, and it's the other ones are full-bodied and are not that easy, not that simple to say. So the other ones are more the wines which you can store and which have a high aging potential. And the Roter Veltliner Wagram version should be the representative for the just to taste the variety and to know about the variety.
Okay, and if you put them in bigger barrels, we talk about like 500-liter barrels or even bigger, like Stückfass, or?
We have one 5,000-liter barrel.
Okay.
And we are working with oak and acacia. And for the Privat, there we work with classic 225-liter barracks.
Okay. And what does acacia wood give to the wine? Because it's not that special in Austria, right? Because you used to have more than it may be in other countries.
Acacia wood, I prefer to work with acacia because it's not that dominant. So it's after you put the wine out of the barrel, it's not that dominant. So you also have the fruit and also the aromatic parts from the grapes. So you don't have to wait this long time until the oak is, or the acacia, so the wooden parts are connected to the wine.
Because I also heard that like after 3 fillings or after 3 years, acacia is almost neutral in taste.
Yes.
Right? Is it correct that kind of 3 years?
Yes, I think it's earlier neutral than oak, in my opinion.
Okay. Okay.
But
nice.
it also depends on how you work, because we are always fermenting in the wood, so in the barrels, and I think that's also really important. So it's not next to the wine, so it's one complex wine, so it's better integrated.
And do you use spontaneous fermentation for all your wines, or?
Yes, for the Roter Veltliner Wagram dressing, we don't use the spontaneous fermentation, but for the single sites, we use the spontaneous fermentation. And for the wines which are fermenting on the mash, of course, we use the spontaneous fermentation. But normally, after I think around 4 or 5 volume %, then always the Saccharomyces cerevisiae is doing fermentation. Yes. Exactly.
Okay. So, and what can we expect from the smaller barrels, from the barriques, so to say?
We can expect. We are using a small, so just a few barrels which are new, but we are also using barrels which are 5 times already used, and so it also should be a good mixture that the wood or the oak flavor is not too strong. And I think it's important for different single size for Steinberg, where you have a big amount of gravel in the löss. There it's important because you have a higher phenolic content, And with storing in this barracks, you do the oxidation, you lose the phenolic content because the phenols are always oxidizing at first, and so it's easier. And so I think it's better because it's more elegant. And yeah.
Okay. And the skin contact wine, so it's kind of an orange wine, so to say?
Yeah, it's an orange wine. It was 30 days with the skins. I also produced it in 500-liter acacia barrel. And I tried a lot with skin contact with the variety Roter Veltliner. We also tried at the vintage 2017 1 year skin contact. This wine is still in the cellar, still in the 500-liter barrels, because I also want to wait for the oxidation with the phenolic content, because after 1 year storing the wine on the mash, you have a high content of phenols. And so I will wait until I think it's the best time for the wine to drink, and then we will bottle it. So it's a small project of mine, but we will see. But I think Roter Veltliner, there are also some aromatic parts which you can gain through the skin contact.
And how should we imagine this? Do you go day by day and taste it, or how often do you feel to check on it?
I tasted it, or I'm tasting it nearly every day. So I have not a strict plan how I will produce this wine. So I'm just tasting it, and then I decide, should we leave it on the mash? Should we press it? Also with the stirring on the yeast. So I just decide, should we stir up the yeast, so patronage, or should we rake it off? And it's just tasting. So I don't have a strict plan. And I think that's important because not every year, not every grapes are the same. So you have to be flexible, in my opinion. You can say, I always want to produce this wine with 30 days on mash, so with the skins, because it depends on the year and also on the single side, and it's not always the same. And for me, it's very important that I can decide in my way, because I always want to bring the best wine out of the grapes, and you can't do this in the same way every year.
And in terms of final product, because Roter Veltliner, as you already said, it has a higher acidity. How many grams of acidity are we talking about generally? In not the orange wine, but so to say normal ones.
In the last year, the acidity was very low, but we still had from 6 to 7 grams per liter. Yes, so it was okay.
And that's generally like also higher than Grüner Veltliner, right? Like with at least 1 gram, I would say.
Yes, around 1 gram. Yeah.
And also some residual sugar, or?
We didn't control it. So, for example, if we use the Steinberg Privat, there we have many barracks, and when we're just tasting it, and this one is part of the wine, this one not, this one, and then it always depends on some wines stop earlier with the fermentation, and then you have a barrel with 7 grams per liter residual sugar, and some are completely dry, and then the mixture. So, but we are always around, with the Steinberg Privat, we are always around 5 grams per liter.
And do you think it gives a nicer or a good balance, like this 6-7 grams of acidity and 5 grams of RS? That's kind of the right ratio.
I really, I think so, but it also depends on the age of the wine and also of the style of the wine. For example, if we also have Roter Veltliner with 5.5 grams per liter acidity and a lower residual sugar. So, but I think it fits very good because you have more complexity. So it's getting not too broad in the mouth when you have a lot of acidity. Especially for me, it's important if you work with oak or with acacia, then in my opinion, it's important that you have also a higher acidity. Not too high, and it should be integrated into the wine, but it's extremely important for the structure of the wine.
And also what I always experience with Roter Veltliner, it's that the acidity usually doesn't come first in the mouth, and it's usually it's organic, so to say, and it's always part of the wine, and a little bit dancing and very long holding. So not just, for example, most of the Rieslings, it attacks your palate, or a Sauvignon Blanc, for example, as well. It attacks your palate right away, and then it kind of melts. Or in terms of Riesling, if it's maybe a Smaragd quality or a bit higher alcohol, then it melts into the body, so it really comes part of it. But Roter Veltliner, I feel like it has a very distinctive acidic profile. I don't know if you noticed it, or do you also have the same experience with your wines, or how would you describe it? Because in blind tasting, I would say that would be a good character to distinguish.
Because of the acidity, I think it's so in blind tastings, it's a little bit higher, so you can taste it because of the structure, but it also depends. So it's very difficult to taste the wine just after the acidity, because you can also taste the wine because of the residual sugar, and they are connected. So if there's more residual sugar, maybe you cannot taste the high acid content. So it really depends on the wine, but I think it gives the wine, so Roter Veltliner, the variety, gets a lot of structure because of its acidity.
And how would you, if you could maybe give us an advice, how would you describe the flavor profile of a Roter Veltliner, and maybe also in a blind tasting, what would maybe give us a hint?
In our winery, we have some exotic fruits, so a little bit also like peach, but there are also, for the lighter ones, you have hints of apple, like the red apple, and it's more the exotic fruit. So it's like pineapple. It's like also like banana if you store it long on the yeast with the oxidation, and so in this direction. But Roter Veltliner is also very flexible. It depends on its
could be a chameleon.
Like a chameleon. That's why it's so interesting to work with this variety, because it fits to a lot of different dishes, and it's really it's not that strict variety that you can't say that should always taste like this, because it depends on the winery and also on the style which you want to produce and which fits to your own opinion. And so it's
I also asked this question because I know that there are not a lot of Roter Veltliner on the planet, so it's about 200 in Austria, 200 hectares, right?
Yes.
So
the most of it is, excuse me?
No, sorry, most of it in Wagram, right?
Yes, and also in the Western Wine Viertel, and we also have Roter Veltliner in Kremstal. There was a producer in Bahar which has a Roter Veltliner. So it's you can find it nearly. There are some producer where you can find the special Roter Veltliner in their portfolio. So it's
and do you see also like a future for the variety in terms of growing acreage? So do you think it's gonna be more plantation in the future?
I hope. And so some years ago, so a lot of years ago, there were a lot of Roter Veltliner, but it wasn't used anymore because it has a lot of grapes, and it wasn't that special and not that good. And Roter Veltliner just shows its potential when you really don't harvest that much. So right now we are halving the grapes, so you shouldn't harvest that much. So there should just be 1 or 2 grapes on each shoot. So then it shows its whole potential. And I think in the wine region Wagram, the Roter Veltliner amount of Roter Veltliner is rising. Yes.
And it's a very old grape as well, right? If I know it's.
Yes. But it's also the one of the parents of some other grapes, and for example, Zierfandler, Rotkipfler, but nobody really knows. So there are some people tried to find out where it comes from. There is the story of the Adda so the Adda Valley in Italy near the Como Sea, that it comes from there. But there are many different stories, and nobody knows where exactly the variety came from.
And what's your theory? What do you like to believe in?
For the theory with the Adda Valley, it was one of my teachers in Klosterneuburg, so I think he's on the right way with this theory.
Okay. And do you see also like a bright future maybe also in the gastronomy? Because I think more sommeliers are turning into, or I would say, or I hope, more customers are turning towards indigenous grape varieties and more special ones, because everyone drank already a Chardonnay and a Sauvignon Blanc, but these grape varieties like Roter Veltliner or Rotgipfler, what you mentioned as well, these are very interesting.
Yeah, I also think that it's important also for us. It was a good option to came into the gastronomy because there are a lot, as you said, a lot of Riesling, a lot of Grüner Veltliner, so it was easier to be a part of the menu with the Roter Veltliner because it's new in the gastronomy, I would say. So not that so there are not that many Roter Veltliner on a normal wine menu, so on a normal wine list. So I think it has potential because you can combine it to a lot of different dishes. For example, the Roter Veltliner Steinberg Privat or flagship is a nice partner with meat, with red meat, or the Roter Veltliner Wagram Berassen, or because of its dryness and its freshness, is a nice partner for fish. So I think there is a potential for this variety in the gastronomy.
What's your favorite pairing?
I like it with I like the Roter Veltliner Ried Mortal, also because of its freshness, with fish, so with Saibling. I don't know the English term right now. Yes, that's one of my favorite pairings because it's also in this time when it's very hot. It's a light meal, so a light dish, and you can easily eat it also under these temperatures.
And why Ried Mortal gives this fresher style of wine?
It's a colder single site, and it's also one of the highest single site. And I think it's because of the gravel, so because of the Tertiary gravel, that the grapes, also if you wait very long with the harvest, still hold the acidity, and you get also a lot of sugar. So acidity and sugar in high contents, and I think that's very important for complex wines, which are not too broad, but are very elegant and very complex and have a long holding and have this freshness and this minerality, I also think, because of the gravels, which is a nice partner to fish.
And when you talk about highest, how many meters above sea level?
We approximately are... I don't know it. I think 300 meters. That's high for the Wagram. So yeah.
So because that's mostly like Hügelland in Deutsch, but it's like not mountainous, but
yeah, no, we don't have mountains. We just yeah.
Okay. And how is it actually the wine life in Wagram? So how is the relationship between the growers? Is it a close community? Are you close to each other, or?
Yeah, I think so, and especially the young generation, we are doing a lot together, and we are always tasting wine together, and sometimes we're visiting some wine bars or the vinothek of the wine region. It's called Varieties, and I think it's a good relationship.
Yeah. And Klosterneuburg is then, I would say, the centrum, probably, right?
No, it's not the centrum. It's even not close to the center. I would say the center is Kirchberg.
Okay.
Of the wine region Wagram in Klosterneuburg is a Großlage. We call it Großlage, and it's far away. So it's 35 kilometers away from the wine region, so from the center.
Mm-hmm. And how many younger growers do you stay in contact with, who is leading the region?
I'm studying with one of them, and also with, I think we all know us. We are not the big wine region, so we know each other. Also, from other wine regions, we are always, going out and tasting some wine or going to wine bars. So I think our generation, I just can talk about our generation, has a good contact to each other. So there are quite a lot.
It's good to know, because where I work in, we have a lot of German guests and also guests from Switzerland. And, almost everybody knows maybe Burgenland for the reds and Wachau and maybe Creme style. But and maybe Kamptal because of the, also because of the sect, because of the sparkling wines. But Wagram and Tertier region and this kind of lesser known regions could have a great potential in the future, I would say, also because of this indigenous grape varieties. So that's why I also asked how close are you, and maybe try to do some together some marketing or.
Yeah, of course. And we also did an event. It was not just the young generation, but we did an event. It was it came from me and Josef Mantler from the winery Mantlerhof from Kremstal. And for example, we did a tasting in the restaurant Tian, Paul Erich cooked there, and it was called Old Variety Next Generation, and it was also quite fun. So we have some events together, and especially for this variety because it's not that known. Especially international. And then when the Vivinum was in Grüner, then we had this event, so this side event of the Vivinum in the restaurant Tian. So we are working together for this variety.
I hope so. And but do you also have other varieties, right, in the vineyard? So Grüner Veltliner, I would say the most, right? What you have?
It's equal parts Roter Veltliner and Grüner Veltliner. It's around 33% of our total. And then we also have Rote Traminer. It's also, my father loves this variety, so it was his first wine he fermented, his first white wine he fermented in small oak barrels. Then we also have Chardonnay, Pinot Blanc, a small part of Sauvignon Blanc for my orange wine. And yeah, these are the white wines. And for the red wines, we have Pinot Noir, Zweigelt, and St. Laurent.
Okay. And in the vineyards, how would you maybe distinguish a Grüner Veltliner and the Roter Veltliner? And also in terms of treatment, maybe like ripening time and vigorousness?
You can see it on the shoots. You also can see it on the leaves. But the easiest way is because of the color. I think everybody, Roter Veltliner has red skins, but you can't produce red wine out of Roter Veltliner. I tried it with 1 year mash contact. No, it's not possible. And with the canopy management, it's also there's a big difference because Roter Veltliner has very strong growing, so you have to work a lot with the canopy, and they are always falling down the shoots, and you also have to put them to the top because they are not growing in only direction, so it's completely mixed. And there should be, that's why many other wine growers call it the diva of the grapes, of the grape varieties, because it's, you have to do a lot of work by hand.
And if you could maybe just choose your personal favorite style of Roter Veltliner making, or what do you say it would be, like vinification, like in bigger barrels, smaller barrels, skin contact, how long should the skin contact could be? What is your favorite maybe, or what, how do you, which style do you think fits better the variety?
That's a difficult question. I think, first of all, I like every wine, also every type of this variety in each style. So it has to be good in his total style. But I prefer, so I really like the style of Roter Veltliner Mortal. So we fermented this wine in stainless steel and we stored it a long time on the yeast. I like this single side Roter Veltliner Ried Mortal. I think it's one of the best single sides for this variety.
And when you talk about yeast contact, it's full yeast or fine yeast?
It was 5 months on full yeast and then on the fine yeast. So we are, like always, we are tasting the wine and then we decide, okay, now it's enough contact with the yeast. And then we just rack it off and then we start with the fine yeast for 3 more months. And then, that's how we do it. So it depends. Some years are just 3 months on the full yeast and some years are long on the full yeast. And how healthy. And it depends also on how healthy the yeast is and on the alcohol, also on the residual sugar. Maybe that there should be another second, so the fermentation should not go on. And also about the temperature, because of the malolactic fermentation, sometimes we're just filtering the wine earlier.
And the wines are usually going through malolactic fermentation, or?
Just at the Roter Veltliner Steinberg Privat, there are some barrels which are doing the malolactic fermentation, but it's, I think, around 30%. So it's, But right now, I tasted today a barrel which did the malolactic fermentation, and the flavor of the malolactic fermentation leaves with the yeast. So if you store the wine long on the yeast, then the yeast is absorbing the flavor of the malolactic fermentation. So there should be some time for the wine that it can,
And on which temperature do you leave it then on?
Right now they are around 16 degrees. And also the barricks are in the cellar. But now it's getting warmer outside, so also the barrels are getting warmer. And now it's in the next week the racking off the first time of the barricks.
Okay. And your top Roter Veltliner, maybe. Can you talk a little bit about this flavor profile, about the Privat, and what can people expect?
Yes, of course. The Roter Steinberg Privat. In the younger years, so right now, you have some smoky parts in the nose from the wood, but you also have pineapple. You also have a little bit of lychee, I think, and peach. And in the flavor, it's I think it's good balanced between acidity and residual sugar. So the wine is dry, and you have a little bit of the banana flavor. You have a little bit of chocolate, but just small hints of chocolate. And you have a little bit of bread, so also from the yeast bread. But it's just in the background. So the chocolate and the bread are just the background. In the first day, you just have the fruity parts like peach, like pineapple, or like banana.
Wow, sounds interesting. Maybe hopefully in the future I can taste it. And how do you see these wines in terms of aging potential? What was maybe the oldest what you drank, or how do you?
We started with this wine in the vintage 2010. So I think it's right now on the highest point, but I just know it from this vintage, so I don't know all the vintages of this wine, and I think there is a high aging potential. Especially with screw caps, the aging potential is longer, I would say, because we tasted a lot of different styles, also from the same wine with cork and screw caps. And in the vintage 2010, all bottles are closed with screw caps. But right now, because I wanted it, we are doing both, so 50% with screw caps and 50% with corks, that you can see the aging, the difference in aging with these two different types of clothing. But I would say the wine 10 years.
And where could we see the prices, like Abhof, so to say, so at the winery?
Yeah, we don't have the prices on the homepage, but the Roter Veltliner Wagram is at €7.50. The Roter Veltliner Steinberg is at €12.50. The Roter Veltliner Mortal is at €18, and the Roter Veltliner Steinberg Privat is at €23. The vintage 2018 years.
Okay, quite modest. I would have guessed it's the premium one is cost a bit more, but it's
okay. No.
And where can we find your wines?
We have some partners. So in Grüner, there we have Del Fabro. We also have in the Western Austria, we have Gottardi, Zilla dalla Brauerei. These are some partners of us. Yes.
Okay. And do you export also as well, or mostly in Austria?
No, we export. Some things are around 50%.
Okay.
The most part is in Europe. So Germany is the most important country for export. We have a small amount which is in the US. And just the orange wine export. So we have an export for the orange wine to South Korea.
Okay.
There I meet Monica Lee, and she at the orange wine fair in Vienna, and met her, and now we are working together. But just for Tertier, for the Tertier project, just these bottles are in South Korea.
And can you tell us a little bit about this Tertier project, because it's also very limited, right, in terms of bottle?
Yeah, I started with this project 2018, and I produced 3 orange wines. So I have the Tertier S. The S is for Sauvignon Blanc. Then I have a Roter Traminer. It's called Tertier T. And a Gondwana. This is the Roter Veltliner. And I produced these wines. I put just the grapes in 500-liter acacia barrels, so just 2 of each in the vintage 2019. In my first vintage 2018, I just produced 1 barrel for each wine. Now there are 2 barrels for each wine. And then the wine is fermenting with the mash, so around between 19 and 22 days. And then we simply press the wine and fill it back into these barrels. And then I am, as I told you already, and then I'm just tasting the wine. Then I decide, should we stir up the yeast or should we rack it off? And in the vintage 2018, because the fermentation on the mash was longer, and there we had a higher phenolic content, I racked the wine off earlier from the full yeast. In the vintage 2019, I could wait a long time, and just 2 weeks before bottling, I racked it off. And then I bottle the wine with the fine yeast, so it's not filtered. And yeah, I think it's also for the Roter Veltliner, it's nice to see the 5th style of this wine. And I'm very happy with my project, because it should be a small project, and I hope it will be a small project, so I can decide and I can learn about it, and I can do whatever I want. It sounds not that nice, but I can try whatever where I'm interested in, and I can work with oxidation, I can work with phenolic contents. I want to reduce the sulfate content, and so I think it's very nice for me, my age, that I am allowed to do this.
And you are allowed because of your father, or?
Yes, I finished the viticulture and pomology school in Klosterneuburg 3 years ago, and right now I'm studying international wine business in Krems. But next to my studying time, I'm working at home, of course. And so my father and me, we do it together, all of the wines. So all of the classic wines and the mash fermented wines I can do by my own. And so because I hear from some friends, also from Klosterneuburg, that their parents said, no, I don't want wine like this, and I think it's not useful, and it's just a trend. And my father was behind me, and he told me, yeah, do it if you want, if you're interested in. I think it's nice to try it, and yeah, so I got the background from my father, and I think that's very important if you want to try something, and if you want to, yeah, because you have to there should be always a small change between generations, but I don't want to say that I will produce all of these wines like this, but it's nice to learn about oxygen, it's nice to learn about a lower sulfate content, and it's also nice rich aromatic parts you can get out of the skins. And we already know it that in the classic vinification, some of the producers, or especially with aromatics and varieties like Roter, Traminer, or Sauvignon Blanc, they are working with a time where they leave before pressing the wine with the skins in the press. And so it's also, I think it's important to work also a little bit with the skins. It shouldn't be always that long time, and there shouldn't be always the fermentation with the skins. But for this small project, I want to do it like this, and I can learn a lot about the total topic skin contact for some other varieties. Also for Grüner Veltliner, there are some hours of skin contact could also be good. Or yeah, I think it's home study like this.
Yeah, I think you are quite lucky to have these tools at home. And if you could just maybe talk a little bit about your private days, so to say. So what do you drink if not a Roter Veltliner or not a Wagram wine, or maybe not even an Austrian wine?
I drink many different styles of wine. So I also love the variety Grüner Veltliner and also Riesling from Bachar, for example, also German Riesling. If we're talking about natural wine, I really like the wine region Jura in France.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not so strict on one style of wine. So I think for if you drink wine, there are more factors which are important. So where are you? Do you have time? Also the climate. Are you on your holidays? Or what dish did you eat? So it depends on lots of different factors, and I think they're also important. And luckily, you always can decide by yourself what you want to drink. So you have to bring yourself into the best position for your situation.
And right now you are working conventional in the vineyards, or?
Yes, we are Sustainable Austria.
Mm-hmm.
So we are certified sustainable. And right now we are working with a classic production. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And because you also mentioned natural wines or maybe lower sulfate wines, do you also maybe thinking about turning into organics or biodynamics in the vineyard?
Yes, of course, I'm thinking about it. We are mostly also working in this direction, but on our winery, just my father and me and my mother and a little bit my grandparents are working. So we are a small winery. And if there are years like 2014, it's really difficult, and we are a little bit scared if there is the danger of some rot or something else. But we are really working in this direction, and yeah.
And do you think your region is kind of optimal for this, for doing organics biodynamics, or is it quite hard? Because you don't have a lot of rain there, or quite a lot of sun.
No, it's very different. So if you compare the Styria, no, we do not have a lot of rain. But this year, the last weeks were very difficult, especially from the grass. So between the winds from the grass management, and but it depends on the year. Some years like the year 2017, 2018 were not that difficult, so it could change. It really depends when it's raining, and how long. So is there some time between the rain where the grapes can dry or the leaves can dry, and that's very important. But I think the wine region Wagram suits good for organic production.
Mm-hmm. And about low sulfur wines, why do you want to change towards this approach?
Not. I don't want to just decrease the sulfur, but I think there are also some natural parts where you can replace sulfur, and which are also good for the flavor, in my opinion. Like if you work with a small content of phenols, then it could be also positive for the wine, and you also don't need that much sulfur. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking about, and that's what I'm trying. And I also think that wines, they are how can I say it? They are you can sometimes wines are very close, especially after bottling, because there are so much sulfite in it, and so I think with the phenolic content you can have a not closed wine direct after bottling, and it also has a high aging potential. So I think there can be some nice combinations, but of course it's not easy to replace sulfur by total. So we are using sulfur in the classic way, so around 40 to 45 milligrams per liter before bottling. And also with the orange wine, I gave them 15 milligrams per liter before I bottled them. I mean, one teacher of mine in Klosterneuburg told me that's useless, that's like half pregnant, that's not possible, that doesn't exist, 50 milligrams per liter SO2. But I think it helps the wine, especially when you put it into the glass, then it's easier for the wine that it didn't change that fast.
Okay. Well, I'm actually got thirsty after your words, and I just imagined your orange wine. So I really hope that after a while, we can sit together as well and taste some of your wines, and maybe just some last questions. Where do you see your winery and also maybe your wine region in 5 or 10 years? Because you seem like I talked to you the first time, and but you seem like a very motivated and already knowledgeable young winemaker. So I think you have some plans for 5 or 10 years.
Yes, of course, I have some plans, but I also want to go abroad and visit different wineries, work for a short time at different wineries, and then I think the time, so it's always changing everything, and I think you have to produce your wine you really like to produce, so you have to find your own style, and I think then you will get the best result. If you are lucky with your product and you're lucky with the way you create or produce your product or your wine, I think that's the best way. And you have to be also.
And where do you want to travel?
I think New Zealand is very interesting, especially from the climate. There is not that big difference to Austria and also to California. And I would also love, but it's difficult to make an internship in the wine region Jura. But for me, it's really important that I can find some small wineries. So I don't want to work in big wineries where it's like a factory. So I hope I can find wineries which are not too big, so that I also can be part of all steps in the producing, and that I also can taste the wine in all steps and all parts. And yeah, we will see. I'm looking, and I think I still have time. My father is not that old, so it's 51. So I'm allowed to leave the winery for sometimes. So yeah.
Do you also have maybe other varieties which you would like to work with in the future?
there, I think we already have a lot of different varieties. So we already have, yeah, Grüner Veltliner, Roter Veltliner, Riesling, Rote Traminer, we have Sauvignon Blanc, we have Chardonnay, Weißburgunder, and 3 different red varieties. So we already have a lot of varieties. I'm more focusing to produce on the most important varieties to get the best out of it. So I think that's very important, because I'm always interested in new varieties, but at first I want to taste it at some other wineries in the same region or under the same conditions, so with the same climate or on a nearly the same soil, and then I will decide, and we will see. Maybe I will find something which I also really would like to grow and also want to produce. But yeah.
Okay. Well, Johannes, it was really nice to talk to you. Would you like to have a final word?
A final word. Yeah, to you, my final words. I hope we can see each other on some days or some weeks, whenever it is possible. And I hope we can taste the wines together.
Please, it's the best final word I could hear. Okay, thank you very much, Johannes, and all the best for the future. Hope to see you soon.
You.
Ciao.
Hope so.